having a bit of a walk around. It's not every day that we get something like this in the workshop, especially. How are you going? This is what we've got in the workshop today. I did say late last week that we were doing a collaboration with somebody. Tom has come along today. He's the guy who we are working with, and he's working with another channel.
Yep.
So I'll let you explain that.
Yeah, so the other channel that me and Dominic are going to be working with, it's called the Classic Motorcycle channel. They're an upcoming and basically growing channel. I mean, they've grown exponentially over the last couple of years since they've started.
How many subscribers have they got?
Well, they have two channels at the moment. One is just close to nearly 100,000 subscribers, and another one is 12,500. So we're going to be doing a bit of work for the vlogging channel, which is the smaller one, which is the motorcycle, Classic Motorcycle channel, which is the number 2, which is the lower side before we go on the larger channel. And
I'll tag them in the description.
Yeah.
And if you're into bikes like this, as well as other bikes, check them out.
Yeah, no worries. Right then, so what I want to do is we'll give you a little bit of a brief instruction of the bike itself. The reason why we brought it here is because we've had to get some welding done. Now, ideally, we should be showing you this at the end, but we'd like to show you the finished product that we've got right now, the work that Dominic has done here. Now, what we can kind of go through on the bike itself, we'll explain a little bit. Now, the bike itself is a 1216 GSXR 1100 engine. Now, when you say 1216, they never made a 1216. The reason why I'm saying that is because this engine currently, it has Hayabusa pistons, Hayabusa rods with a spacer plate. You can probably just see on the camera where I'm holding my fingers there. That's a spacer plate. Now, the reason for the spacer plate is the rods, the Hayabusa rods are slightly longer, as you can probably guess, by about that much. Now, once we piece this all together, we actually get a lower compression engine. Now, we could go down the engineering side of it, but I'd probably bore you more than anything. But to give you a bit of an idea of the turbo itself, it's off a Volvo C70. Dominic can show you here. Now, you can see it's got an external wastegate as well. That's a tile or teal. That's we don't really know how to say that really, because you've got the
Americans. Yeah, it's like Z or Z.
Yeah, or
2JZ
or tomatoes. But yeah, so the actual turbo itself is a Volvo C70. Now, the technical term for that is a TD04 HL16T. So for the gurus out there that are listening, they'll know straight away what that is, what year it was from and whatever else, but Volvo C70, which makes 280 to 288 brake horsepower and about 188 foot-pounds of torque. So she's got some go.
So in a nutshell then, the bike is turbocharged. Obviously, it wasn't turbocharged.
Yeah.
And with regards to turbocharging the bike, there is various things that you've had to do, as we just said there, lowering the compression, all that sort of thing, making a turbo manifold, which that's the sort of thing that I would do. That's obviously been done by the guy who built the bike. What year is the bike?
So the actual chassis itself is a 1991. The reg is basically 1991, but collectively there's a multitude of years of the bike between the swinging arm, the wheels. There's some modern parts on it that are from a brand new motorcycle. There's some all the way from 1991.
So the frame is a 91.
Yeah. What
is the swing arm? Is that original?
So the swing arm itself is a 750 arm. Now the reason why we went with 750 arm was literally to reduce and shorten the length of the bike, because this bike was built for wheelies.
Yeah, if I didn't go into that to start with, that's one thing that... Yeah. So this... I'm going to clip to show you some footage of this bike wheeling. A multitude of colours, one of them be it silver.
Yeah.
So in the video it'll look silver, but this bike was built for world wheelie record attempts.
That's it.
What was the fastest you did on it?
So the fastest I ever did was 184.8 miles an hour, and that was my top speed after wheeling for a full kilometre. So that's how the standings are. You get to start, you lift, you do a full kilometre on one wheel, and your terminal speed at the bottom of the runway 26, Elvington, was 184.8.
The swing arm is off a 750 and that's shorter, and the reason obviously it is shorter is so the distance between the two wheels is tighter together. That means that the front end will come up a ton easier.
It does, yeah, and also it means that it's much smoother to wheelie, because if it was a longer swinging arm, from experience,
what are you doing?
You're back. Like, that's because it's raining outside, isn't it? And you're soaking wet.
And Blair's driving around with a forklift.
Yeah, so realistically we shortened it because it gives it a little bit more control. You don't need to be as aggressive with the throttle to get the same amount of action. So what that basically means is, yes, it makes it easier to wheelie. Some people might say that's slightly cheating a little bit. However, it's much safer, because if you're using less throttle, that means you don't have to be as aggressive, which is really, really important whilst you're doing wheelies at 170 plus miles an hour.
So custom things, obviously, so 91 frame, unmodified to a degree.
Within a sense, we had some mild modifications at the front which are quite difficult to see on camera that you were aware of.
But the geometry and the main frame is as OE as you would say.
Exactly, yeah, because the frame and the subframe, you might spot here, are actually one piece. They can't be separated.
Yeah.
The subframe is completely unaltered.
And then that engine belongs in that bike originally?
The head and barrels do.
Yeah.
The bottom end is actually a Bandit 1200 bottom end, because it's got a twin output bearing, which I believe is a Mark 1. There might be people that comment and explain it could be a Mark 2. However, my knowledge is it's a Mark 1 Bandit bottom end, 1100 barrels, 1100 head.
And then you've got a plenum on the back of the carburetors for the turbo feed.
Yeah.
The turbo pipe's actually off.
Yeah, it's actually off at the moment. The reason why it's off is when we're doing work on the bike and I need to start it, I'll explain it to people to say why it's off.
How nice does that colour look?
Does it actually pick it up in the...
Yeah, really good, yeah. So honestly, it doesn't do it justice. At the other side, it looked black.
Yeah.
And it sort of blended in with the frame, where now you can really see the colour.
Yeah, so just to mention there about the plenum. The reason why I have it off is that when you're trying to start this bike after long periods of time, the carburetors can get a bit upset with themselves, we'll say, right? So when you're trying to start the bike, it can flood. So rather than flooding and filling the actual plenum pipework and the turbo itself, we leave this off. I take the sock off it, obviously, and then we try and start it. Once I've got the A-OK, then plenum pipework goes on, we're ready to go, literally.
And these are billet covers that aren't factory, as we discussed.
Yeah, these are billet covers made by a company that unfortunately have actually disappeared, which is a great shame, because they made amazing pieces of equipment like that.
Just noticed on the front there, the calipers are made by Hell.
Yeah.
And this is an aftermarket bracket by the looks of things, MHP, is it?
Find them on Facebook that actually do create these billet adapters, so you can convert them to this type of brake rather than having the ones which just bolts onto here. Realistically, for me, doing the wheelies, did it improve anything? Not really, because end of the day, when we're doing the high-speed wheelies, and we land, we let the air slow us down and we gradually brake. So ideally, I saw no benefit apart from just modernising the braking system more than anything.
Is it a bigger rotor as well? Because it looks like it.
No, it's not a bigger rotor, but the rear is actually smaller. To convert it to the 84mm underslung on the rear, we actually have to use a smaller disc.
Right, okay.
So theoretically, to convert the rear, you actually lose efficiency. However, because I modernised the front, I wanted to modernise the rear as well, realistically.
Yeah. Anything else? So we've got different things on the fuel tank as well. That was actually done here a lot of years ago.
It's probably slightly difficult to see at the moment, but we do have the return from the Malpassi. Now the Malpassi is nestled in the bike up here. The bike does run carburetors. Now we do use a fuel system on the bike, which is a fuel pump with a Malpassi, which is operated by the boost itself. It's set currently at probably 2.5 psi. When it's set at 2.5 psi, it'll fill the carbs perfectly fine and they won't be overcome. Now, when we start the bike, it starts making boost, the Malpassi closes, and we gain between 50 and 80 psi fuel pressure, which is more than enough to feed.
So that's like a rising rate fuel pressure regulator?
It is, yeah, and it's just nestled down the back here. That's what these pipes are for, because it takes the source from the plenum, like most Malpassis or fuel pressure regulators would. But with it being a carburetted one, generally speaking, most people that know about turbos and other things, they have quite a strong spring in these pressure regulators, because some of them they run injection systems on them. This is carburetted. But yeah, that's where we're at.
And these forks, they're obviously not originally off the bike.
No, they're
and the yokes as well.
Yeah, the forks are 2007 Gen 1 Hayabusa. So they come from a Gen 1 Hayabusa. It was a bit of
Any particular reason why a Hayabusa?
Do you know that the only particular reason was they were wide.
Right.
Now, if you look at a Hayabusa in comparison to...
And is that a factory wheel then, or is that a Hayabusa wheel as well?
That's a factory Hayabusa wheel, yeah.
So you've used the Hayabusa wheel with a Hayabusa fork, so your original wheel wouldn't have fit, it'd have been too narrow.
It'd have been too narrow, and also it had all of the speedo drive and everything on it, because you've got to remember, these bikes in 91 had a speedo drive on the front wheel.
Yeah.
So we couldn't obtain that, so we basically went full Busa front end. And as you mentioned about the yokes were made by a guy based in the northeast called Sam Baker. They were made a number of years ago now, and they've been pretty exceptional, to be fair. And we actually retained the GSXR 1100 steerer stem, so we didn't have to alter the bearings as well.
Right,
which is
nice.
a godsend. To
Yeah.
Saves a lot of time.
So you've used, so the yokes are designed to go from Hayabusa to GSXR.
Yeah.
Otherwise, obviously, if you would have used the wider yokes off the Hayabusa, the stem would have been wrong.
And also it would have been wrong, and also the actual tyre hit the turbo.
Ah, right, okay.
Because as you can sort of spot, there's actually a step down on them forks.
Yes.
You can sort of see it's roughly around about 2 inches, just at the top. Now that 2 inches makes a big difference.
Everybody knows 2 inches makes
Absolutely.
a big difference.
I'd settle for an extra inch, but anyway, yeah, that's that. You know, and like generally with the rest of the bike, you know, if we basically just sat down and filmed absolutely everything, most of the things on this bike are pretty much bespoke, from the small things down to the AM lines, down to how we even do the couplings, how we do absolutely everything internally underneath the tank and the welding underneath the tank. There's a lot on the bike that...
I know about the welding on the tank.
Oh yeah, because you did that actually. That actually reminds me. Yeah, you did.
All this sort of stuff as well. Like, I've known Tom for a while, and I've seen photos of the bike, but I've never actually seen the bike in the flesh.
Yeah.
And as I said when you turned up this morning, the one thing I would say is the photos really don't do it justice. And it's like the Discovery or my KX, you've really got to look around it a couple of times before you actually appreciate all of the things that have subtly been changed, but you can't tell, which is what I like in a conversion, because it looks factory.
Yeah.
To all intents and purposes, as you look around the bike, you just look at it and think, wow, that's smart. I know it's different, but I don't really know how. Hence to asking, you know, what are the forks out? If you didn't tell me they were out of a Hayabusa, I know they're different, but I don't know how they're different, what they're out of, and things like that.
Yeah. It's, you know, collectively, there's a lot of parts on the bike from other bikes. Like I mentioned before, that the rear wheel is an SRAD 600.
Yeah.
The sprocket carrier is a GSXR 1100. Sprocket carrier 1986, which is a real difficult carrier to get sprockets for. However, it's the only one that we can use. So unfortunately, we've just got to bite the bullet and actually pay for them. The rear shock is a Maxton rear shock that I didn't have made. It was the actual previous owner, David Dodd Rogers, that actually had the shock done for that. So I certainly can't take any credit for that one, alongside with the plenum as well.
So this bike has been here today. I'll show some footage of the exhaust being made. I've shown you plenty of footage of exhaust being made. As I always say, it genuinely is a pleasure to work on things like this. Who can say, you know, I've got something so unique in the workshop that I'm working on? Here we have a downpipe. This is I dropped a photo a few weeks back of this bike sump. So what you can see is I modified the sump to take the return from the bottom of the turbo to the bottom of the sump. Tom brought the bike to us, and now basically what we've got is an interference issue on the downpipe. So as the pipe's coming down, this is now hitting the sump. The plan of attack is rework that downpipe, make it so it doesn't hit the sump, and then, yeah. Can we start it after that?
No, no oil.
Oh.
No oil, fortunately.
A bit of a shame. Hopefully we'll have to get some footage of it running later on, but for this video, all intents and purposes, downpipe modification. So what I've just done there is die grinder on the inside after I've cut this with the bandsaw, and the reason being is on the inside of this, it's absolutely full of carbon. Now if I welded that without cleaning it, because the weld is penetrating through, there's a good chance that that carbon is going to then come into my weld on the outside and impregnate it and cause potential problems further down the line. So nice and clean, ready for bolting it up, get the next piece of exhaust cut and stick it together. Wonder. What do you think? What's this? What's this? Oh! What I've done now is I've marked up with a pen where my rotation is on the bike. I've done my weld prep. So that means I've just taken the edge of this corner off ever so slightly on both sides. The reason being is when you start to put the weld in, then it just really flows in nicely. A lot of people don't usually do that, but I feel it makes a lot better weld finish, I'm gonna say. So the next plan of attack is tack this in place, double check the fitment on the bike, and then we'll start doing the next bend. Just not use that wastegate because... So one thing we found with this, we've got the first bit of the downpipe modified. We've just made an executive decision because the lambda sensor's not in all the time and it being out here is a bit numb and ugly. We're going to hide the lambda boss around the back. We're going to come back to that because first things first, we need to modify this. This exhaust used to go further in, but now because we need to bring it further out, we're going to remove this bit of a piece out the center to bring it out. And then the other thing as well, I'm not massively happy that we've got a join on a join on a... So the plan of attack is to remove this and put one piece in between the two rather than having... And another thing as well, not trying to knock somebody else's work, but what you can see is that that's actually pointing up over where we want ours nice and flat. So I'm going to remove that, make it flat, one piece in between the two, and then join that onto the rear section by shortening this down. Sweet.
I'm guaranteeing that people are going to comment, why is it on a bike ramp?
Got the springs on. Well, springs set up there. Really, really pleased. Very nice. So this is going to the guys at, did we touch base with what they were called?
Oh, so yeah, I think we mentioned it briefly at the start of this video. It's called the Classic Motorcycle channel. We sort of mentioned about the subscriber count and other things like that, but what the sort of plan is we're going to do like a series, like I wouldn't call it like a reincarnation. However, what we're doing is we're getting the bike so it's usable again as a road bike, because we don't really know if I'm going to race again next year or the year after. We don't truly know. It's down to personal preference for me. But what we're going to do is we're going to do a small series on this of getting it back to its former glory. We're going to do a paint job, rebuild the carbs, and obviously with Dominic, from what you're seeing now, get the exhaust remade so it's actually right and it works. And that's what we're going to do, because we're going to start on the small channel and we're going to upload a few more videos to the larger channel as and when. And if that goes all well, to be fair, there might be some other videos on the channel. Me and Dominic doing other things together as well, which would be brilliant. Yeah.
So that's it in a nutshell. We've got the bike done. The next stage will be Tom takes it away, does what he's just said. Yeah. And yeah, if you like bikes, I'll leave a link in the description below. Check them guys out. And I hope you've enjoyed this video.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Tune in for more.
We'll see you next time. Bunda. Psst. What are you doing?
I'm not addicted to YouTube, by the way. Just to sit here unloading my bike.
What do you think, Bund? Hey? You gonna help me? You're a good dog, aren't you? We're in here on a Sunday. I'm gonna get this done, aren't we? Aren't we, boy? Aren't we, boy? Hey, good boy.